In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add visit data on SRMS Online. There are a couple of routes by which you can add data from your Raptor monitoring visits. If your preference is working with maps, then you can add visit data via Map View. If there's a relevant location displayed on the map, perhaps a nest site or observation site, then simply click on it to select it, and then you'll be able to click on the dark blue Add Visit Data button in the floating panel. In this example, we've selected the Airdrie Castle nest site. If your preference is working with lists or tables, then you can add visit data via Table View. If there is a relevant location listed, perhaps a nest site or observation site, then simply click on the dark blue Add Visit Data button in the Options column at the beginning of the table row. Again, as for Map View, in this example, we've selected the Airdrie Castle nest site. Whichever route you choose, clicking on Add Visit Data will bring you through to a new visit log, which you can see here. All monitoring data relating to the same home range should be recorded in a single visit log for that breeding season. This means that visit data relating to alternate nest sites within a home range, or for successive breeding attempts at one or more nest sites within a given home range, are recorded in the same visit log. The visit log is divided into two main parts. At the top of the page, there is a section with three tabs called Main, Defaults and Pair Code. At the bottom of the page, there is the section where you record the visit information, one row for each separate visit to a specific location within the home range. Let's come back and look at the top of the page again. On the Main tab, you can see fields for species and home range. Both fields are likely to have been automatically completed. If you're interested in doing so, you can click on the View on Map button, which will show you the extent of the mapped home range which the visit log relates to. This example is for Raven, which is nominally being given a home range side of 10 kilometres by 10 kilometres. So here you're seeing that boundary selected, which will encompass any of the relevant observation sites or nest sites within it. If for some reason the home range code had not been automatically completed, you would be able to use the Find by Nest Site button to help find the correct home range code. The next tab we'll look at is the Defaults one. It's worth spending a little bit of time completing these for each visit log, as it may save you a bit of data entry time when it comes to complete the visit by visit information below. You can set defaults for initials. These are the initials for any observers undertaking the monitoring. If it's always likely to be the same observers undertaking all the monitoring visits within the home range, then it's worth selecting them here, and this will then pre-populate the initials field in the visit log below. The names available to you in this list are determined by the observer list, and there's a separate tutorial which takes you through managing this. You're also able to set defaults for observation method, the method that the observer is employing to monitor the home range. If most of the monitoring visits within the home range are likely to be via the same observation method, for example an observation from distance, then it's worth selecting it here, and this will then pre-populate the observation method field in the visit log below. The final tab is the Pair Code tab. If there is a pair of individually identifiable birds in this home range, then you may wish to create a pair code. Now that we've looked at the top of the page, we'll turn our attention to the bottom part of the page, where you should aim to complete one row per visit. There are tooltips throughout this section to help guide you towards recording the most useful information in the correct format. I'll just work through each of these pieces of information you should be looking to provide us on each of your monitoring visits. The first field is date, which needs to be completed in the format of 2 digits for the day, 2 for the month and 4 for the year, all separated by forward slashes. You can either type it directly into the box or otherwise click on the calendar selector tool, which will bring up a calendar where you're able to click on the correct date. The next field is time, which is the start time of the visit. This needs to be in 24-hour format, so 18:00 for 6 p.m. The next field is initials, which is the name of the individual observers involved on any given visit. You may have already set this in the defaults at the top. If not, this will autofill with the initials of the person making the data entry. If neither of these is correct for this visit, you can select the relevant observer from the drop-down menu. The names available to you in this list are determined by the observer list, and there is a separate tutorial which takes you through managing an observer list, which you might want to take a look at. The next field is observation method, which is the observation method employed on any given visit. Again, you may have already set this in the defaults at the top. If not, then you can select the relevant observation method from the drop-down list. The next field is location, which is the location within the home range where the record has been made. This is most likely to be a named nest site or observation site. If you access the visit log via the Add Visit Data button via Map View or Table View, this field will be completed with the relevant details of the location you clicked on. If this is not the location you intended to link the information to, then you have several options at this point. You can click on the arrow next to the named location and then from the drop-down list choose to link to any other specific named locations already listed, or create a new nest site or observation site by clicking on the relevant options in the drop-down list. The next field is occupancy, which is the recorded occupancy on that visit. You can select from a range of occupancy options to select the most relevant one. The next field is status codes. You can click in the box and select up to 5 different status codes. The codes are broken down under different headings to try to help you find the most relevant codes quickly. The headings include territory, nest building stage, parents, eggs, young, outcome success, outcome failure, outcome unknown, and outcome no breeding. If you are less familiar with the status codes on offer, you can start typing a word that's likely to be in the status code description to help you find it. Here I've started typing the word perched, and it's offered up a couple of codes for me to consider. At this point, it's possible to add more details via the Add More Details button. Having added information, this box will turn blue. The type of extra detail you can add will depend on the status code. For some codes, you're able to add counts, ages, and sexes of birds. For field signs of birds, you're able to add the type and age of the sign. And for codes relating to breeding failures, you're able to tell us the cause of failure and capture any relevant evidences. The next fields relate to any nest contents that you might be able to record, i.e. any eggs or young. You can enter the number of live and dead, and in the case of young, number of fledged, into the boxes. If you cannot make a precise count, you can put a minimum count by recording a number followed by a plus. If you cannot see the nest contents but have other evidence that contents must be present, such as an incubating bird, then you're able to enter a question mark in the relevant boxes. The next field is the number of the nesting attempt. This means that you can record successive nesting attempts at the same nest or at alternative nest sites within the home range or within the same visit log. The next field is the time by nest. This box is only activated when the observation method selected is nest visit and allows you to record the number of minutes spent nearby the nest. The final field is a free text box for comments of up to 200 characters in length. Having added information, this box will turn blue. Having entered all the information from your visit, it's important to save it. You can do this by clicking on the green Save Visit button. I would encourage regular saving during data entry just to bank the information as you go. Having saved your first visit, you'll notice that the visit log changes. You're told that the visit log has been successfully saved at the top. You see a summary for the home range showing both the outcome and occupancy based on the visits entered so far. In this case, the outcome is showing as unfinished, and this will remain the case until the monitoring at this home range is concluded. You may get presented with warnings in pale yellow boxes, which are likely to be things worth double-checking in your data entry based on the expected biology of the species concerned. If you realise that you've made a mistake in your data entry, then you can edit the details of any given visit. You can activate a row for editing by clicking on the blue pencil symbol towards the right-hand end of the row. If you realise that you've got a visit row completely wrong and want to delete it in its entirety, you can do so by clicking on the red bin symbol at the far right-hand end of the row. Each time you save the visit log, a new row will appear ready for you to add data from a different visit. Having now saved some data, if we pop back along to map view, we can see that the Airdrie Castle nest site now has visit data recorded against it for the current breeding season. We can see that the nest site point is filled in orange, whereas the other nearby nest sites without any visit data remain hollow. If you're collaborating with others to monitor the same home ranges to complete a shared visit log, then you may find it useful to be able to check the map for an indication of whether fellow contributors may have already entered some visit data for the current breeding season. From this point, if we had monitoring data from subsequent visits to add in, we could simply click back on the location to select it, then click on the blue Add Visit Data button, and be taken back to the visit log we already had on the go.